Hello, welcome back. I'm Jen, and this is my YouTube channel. And I am speaking about the entire process of going through an amputation after 12 separate surgeries and procedures to try and fix a leg that was damaged while deployed in Iraq. Today's topic, however, is dealing more with PTSD. So, when I went to Iraq, I did 10 separate trips there. And the first 8 were related to mass graves. And I worked very closely on the victims of genocide that were perpetuated by Saddam. That caused some PTS issues that's very much related to seeing, being around, or being in proximity of children. And that's simply because the majority of my population that had been killed were kids under the age of 13. So coming home and integrating back into society was a culture shock. It was an experience that I thought would be fine. But after talking with lots of veterans, it's something that is actually really quite difficult to do. And that's because the things like mundania, things that normal people experience in their regular lives that we appreciate when we're in theater, things that we miss and we long for, when you come back to them, all of a sudden do not feel as important, as urgent, as critical, as terrifying. They are not as high speed as what we experience in theater. And as a result, it can be quite difficult to normalize them, internalize them, process them, and utilize a response that can help us interact with folks who have never experienced trauma or casualties inside a theater of warfare, such as Iraq or Afghanistan, or any of the other engagements that we've been in, frankly. So these were things that I had read about. They were experiences that I knew I was going to have because I have so many amazing friends who are veterans. What I didn't expect, however, was the experiences that I'm going through now as I face this amputation. And that has now been dubbed surgical PTSD. So yay, that's a new one for me. According to the surgeons, this is PTSD that is developed by people who have multiple surgical procedures to deal with an injury. And therefore, their body feels traumatized, tortured, and abused, basically. And so that manifests into PTSD. And a couple of surgeries ago, I didn't know this was happening, but I walked into the surgical center getting ready for my day of having my ankle fused for the first time. And it was the craziest thing. I got in there, I was in a happy mood, I had my day planned, everything was normal. And we got to the surgical center and I was next to my husband, and thank God for him, because I saw the word surgical center. That was it. That's all it took. And I hit the deck. My knees were on the floor. I was crying. I was a horrific mess. Snot everywhere. It was really awful. And it was just, I had to be like medicated in order to get through this because I could not actually make my legs walk into the surgical center. It was just the worst possible experience. And I was completely unprepared for it. I didn't know it was going to happen. That's the unfortunate thing about PTSD, is that you just don't know exactly when things are going to happen. There's certain triggers you might have that you can foretell. For me, I'd like to have control of my environment, but I have kids and I have 3 big dogs, so you kind of can't do that. So instead, I keep certain areas of my house organized, and then the rest of the areas are like chaos rooms, and I let the family deal with those. But there's certain things that I know trigger me, and so I minimize them or mitigate them. There's processes that I take to try and get out of an anxiety attack, such as focus work, breathing exercises. I have an absolutely fantastic service dog who helps me, especially with pain management. I know you wouldn't expect a service dog to do that, right? But yeah, it does. It helps. So there's things that I know how to do, and I've counseled other people on this. Now, I'm not an official counselor. I'm not licensed. I'm not trained, but I have resources. And so in an unofficial capacity, I was able to help other people work through their situations. So I know what to expect. I know what to do. So why does it affect me so badly, right? This is not something that I would expect simply because I know what to do. So the problem here is when you have your mind, your ability to think, your brain is telling you all these things you should do or you can do, or the steps, the tools, the processes, the whatever that you need to do in order to get yourself through an anxiety attack or through a PTSD episode, but it goes right out the window when you're having one. So that happened in this process. I mean, I knew that I was probably going to have some issues going forward because it's another surgery. And amputation is by far the most major surgery I've had so far. But on March 27th, I woke up, I had my morning caffeine, I started watching the news, I was having a happy morning, and then I looked at the date on my phone. And that's all it took. My first anxiety attack related to this surgery. It was the 1 month mark, and I started crying and couldn't breathe, and it was really, really horrible. And thankfully, I was able to get it under control really quick. But today I called the insurance, and part of that process is finding out what your insurance covers, what the claims are going to be, what's going to be your percentage of coverage, et cetera, because surgeries are also very expensive, and all the surgeries I've had have left our family, at times in a bad situation. So medical bills notwithstanding, you need to be prepared so that it's not a surprise and that financially you can figure out ways that you're going to pay for the copays and deal with every little penny that you get milked for in our wonderful medical system. So I called the insurance to find out what our cost was going to be, whether or not we were in coverage in network or out of network. And we have to process whether or not the hospital is in network or out of network, if our doctor's in network, out of network, anesthesiologist, the nursing facility, whether or not you stay in the hospital 1 or 2 days, because it's not an out process situation. You have to stay in the hospital. They're planning for me for 2 days if everything goes well, but we're expecting 3. The doctor is doing this just to make sure that pain is completely controlled before I come home, especially since it's going to be a 2-hour drive between the facility and my home. We're hoping for the best and we're anticipating and expecting the best, but you have to mitigate and plan and prepare for those unexpected situations. So today's process was figuring out some of the unknown factors by calling the insurance. I was fine, completely and utterly fine. And I was answering the wonderful lady's questions as she spoke to me, and she was really fantastic. And we were going through claims and benefits, and I pulled out the surgical paperwork. And all it took was for me to see the name and address of the surgical center and the date, and in big, huge, bold letters, it says, lower left below knee amputation and removal. And just seeing those words just hit home in a way that hadn't before, even though mentally I know what I'm about to do. I'm prepared for it. I'm excited about it even. This is the first step in a journey towards being, active and physical again, and to being able to get my life back and to be able to do things that I haven't been able to do in a decade, like walk my dog or go on a hike or, oh my gosh, go diving again. And I'm so excited about that, but I still have to get through that surgical part. and I know the pain that's coming. And although I'm very used to pain, nobody is used to or excited about or wanting surgical pain that is the worst possible kind of pain you can experience. So my body reacted, and it came quick. I had a massive anxiety attack, and it left me shaken, and my husband had to get involved and take over the phone call for me. And uh, the end result was that I felt very weak and incapable, and I was mad at myself for not being able to handle this, and I was angry that I could not get past this. I'm mad at my own brain for experiencing this trauma. Now, this sounds really bad. It does, because the thing is I would never say this to someone else. Never. And if someone were saying the same words that were coming out of my mouth to me, I would be refuting it back to them and telling them that these are valid feelings and that they are okay to have, they are expected, in fact, and that these fears, these memories that my body is having are the culmination of 10 years worth of the worst possible experiences and worst possible pain that any human body could experience on a regular basis. I mean, we're talking about walking, and every step feels like I literally was having a hammer being taken to my shin and walking on broken glass and daggers. That's the level of pain that I am in a regular daily basis. And sometimes that pain will drop me to my knees and make me throw up. That's how bad it is. So your body remembers that. And I would never tell another person that having an anxiety attack or having a reaction to that would ever be less than acceptable or less than anticipated or expected. And that it is all right to have these feelings, that it is okay to be shaken by it. It is okay to be afraid of surgery, but then you're able to get past it. And you need to be able to remember that you can get past it and that you will survive it and that everything will be okay. So why do I not tell myself these things and remember them? I don't know. I don't know why it is that I feel like I have failed when I can't get past an anxiety attack. I don't know why I feel like I am weak. Like mentally, I'm not strong enough to have done this. I feel like there's no reason for me to have PTS or PTSD 10 years after deployments or, experiencing these traumas or what have you so long after the fact that they had occurred. The problem is that your brain and your psyche doesn't work like that. PTS can manifest at any point in time in your life, and it can manifest in ways that are not documented, that you can't expect, you can't anticipate, and it's okay to experience it. It's okay. And there's help. The biggest thing is just not to be quiet about it. It's important to talk about it. It's important to normalize it, to let people know that mental health is important. And it is critical for the care, keeping, and safety of people who experience this to know that there are ears out there. There are people who are listening. There are hearts that are open for you. And I'm one of them. I'll work through my own issues. I have friends that will help me with this as well. I'd love to hear if you have any comments. I do have doctors that I talk to about this. My medical doctors are currently aware of these issues, and they are now deeming this a different type of PTS called surgical PTSD, and that's defined by the one surgeon as the memory of the body of surgical trauma, the pain related to it, and the healing time that goes with it. And your body reacts when it has those precursors. So I see a surgical center sign or I see the word surgery or whatever, it manifests in those ways. They say this is a documented thing. So people who have chronic issues, who have multiple surgeries, they experience these kinds of PTSD reactions. So there is a bevy of emotional things occurring, not just between my experiences that caused the injury, but also the multiple surgeries that took place that have then manifested in these reactions to impending pain. So not just the pain I have now, but the impending pain and the memory that I have of recovering from all the other surgeries. I need to be better to myself. That's the lesson here, is that I can talk about it all I want to, but the reason that I'm actually putting it out there is to let people know it's okay, and also to remind myself that it's okay and that this is going to be okay. It's a really difficult thing to accept vulnerability, especially in situations where you get hurt enough, whether it be from people, outside factors, events, environments, surgery, etc., that your vulnerabilities are things that you don't want to have. And so you build up control issues, or you build up walls, or you build up what have you. It's okay to do that, but it's also okay to be vulnerable and to experience it and to work through it and to talk about it and to get it out there so that you can let it go. So that is my lesson for today, is the lesson of allowing the vulnerability to exist and to letting it go, and to understanding, accepting, and mitigating the impending surgical anxiety and trauma that is going to occur. And I'm okay with all of that. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, or if you want to subscribe or any of that, please do that. I would absolutely love to hear from you, and will answer any questions I possibly can. Thanks.